I've made films my whole life, and I've always wanted to know what makes this passion that I have so special, not just to me, but to society. I didn't know how deep this historical rabbit hole was going to take me, but the minute I entered it, I knew that I wanted to share it with the world. I'm Toby, and this is my film. What is film? Google's first definition is about analog film, not helpful. But there is a second definition, which also doesn't tell us much. We all know that film is so much more than just a moving set of images. So maybe I can ask a better question? How about, where did film begin? Well, it all started with this. A rotating disc of cardboard. Obviously, it's a crude version of a medium from a long time ago, and it's a stretch to call it film, but it is still an early form of animation. Animation predates film, this device in particular coming around in the early 1900s. In fact, films that actually met Google's definition of film didn't come around until decades later, in the 1850s. Films that actually resembled those today didn't come around until much later, however, the first of this kind being this film, released by the Lumiere brothers in 1896. It was 46 seconds long, which was unprecedented for a high frame rate film at the time. This was possible because of the invention of celluloid film, the first big innovation in movie technology, allowing for continuous, high frame rate recording from a singular camera as opposed to needing individual lenses for each frame. This allowed film to progress from a simple novelty to a viable storytelling device, resulting in the first proper films with real engaging plots popping up around this time. It took another few decades for film to explode into the mainstream, this happening during the Hollywood Golden Age, which started around 1930. It was kickstarted by developments in colour film and audio technology, allowing high quality films with realistic, well synchronised dialogue to be produced. Film's dominance also spread across the world during the 20th century, with the peaks of the British, German and other countries' film industries coming around the same period of time. Film's potential power to influence wasn't seen until about a decade after the Golden Age, being exhibited to the world on a large scale for the first time in the form of the television war. The Vietnam War was the first major event to be documented through video to the masses. The intense, uncensored coverage of the war allowed the public to empathise with and see the conditions their soldiers were going through, causing outcry against the war that spread throughout America. People could finally see the reality of the conflict thanks to on-site reporting, falsifying the idealised portrayals of war generally put out by government. This was the first instance of film exposing a tragedy, causing a nation or worldwide cultural shift. This trend would continue in cases such as Ronald Reagan's resounding election victory over Richard Nixon, largely because he was so much more charismatic and appealing on screen. These events only became more prevalent as film improved. A second boom came in the 70s. Advancements in special effects technology and colour's full replacement of grayscale film, initiating what is sometimes labelled as the second golden age. This period saw a massive jump in creative freedom, subjects like violence and sex moving into the scope of possibility for filmmakers. Less established, more experimental directors were also given more control by film studios, some big names that you definitely know getting their start in this period. Moving to 1996, drama movie Windhorse was filmed in Tibet and Nepal. But what the hell is so special about some lesser known, poorly rated indie film? Windhorse was filmed on this, a prototype of the Sony DVW700WS. It's special because it's fundamentally different from all the films that came before it. It was the first film that was fully digital. Many directors still preferred the look of analog film at first. Tarantino even said this in 2014. But a flurry of technological development eventually led to ARRI's Alexa camera being released in 2010, the first digital camera to rival film's quality enough to be worth using for most directors. Digital post-production was also much more capable than the analog variant, with special effects taking a massive leap as a result of the switch. Although not convincing initially, they allowed for creations that simply weren't possible on analog film. This being said, the internet was perhaps an even more critical invention for the expansion of digital film's influence than digital film itself. Social media and streaming services were huge developments for the distribution of films, allowing them to be viewed wherever and whenever someone wanted to. The other device that allowed film to explode was the iPhone, announced in 2007. Although Steve Jobs didn't intend this quote provides a pretty good representation of how the device impacted film. Instead of having to use a standalone, heavy and expensive camera, people could easily film something with a device they always kept in their pocket anyway, then upload their creations online so their friends and family could see them. Not actually that much has changed in the grand scheme of things in the film space since then, essentially bringing us to the present. Because film now dominates the internet, it gives us a real power to influence others that we don't personally know, which isn't something any regular person has had before. A perfect example of this is the Black Lives Matter movement, a global cultural shift that saw protests against racial discrimination and police brutality across the planet, all because 17-year-old Darnella Frazier filmed George Floyd's murder on her phone. The power to influence and expose that film gives anyone and everyone in the 21st century is truly incredible, and not something that has existed before our time. Unfortunately, videos of Floyd's nature will continue to pop up, as these things are sadly inevitable in the current state of the world. However, each time you see one, just remember that these incidents would have gone completely unnoticed if it wasn't for someone being able to pull out their phone and film it. Film is a powerful societal influence, which traditionally was only accessible to large production companies and news outlets, but because of recent developments like social media and mobile phones, now anyone has the ability to access it. We should never take it for granted that, like Frazier, anyone can make an impact that stretches across the world, causing permanent social and cultural change. An effect that is simply astonishing considering it's caused only by someone pressing record.